All right. Good morning. Good tavach. We continue with our mimer, with our Hasidic discourse as we prepare for Purim. And we're speaking about 4 different types of love that come from the core of the soul. When the person is asleep, but the heart is open, our heart is awake. The heart means the core of our soul is awake, even though the powers of our soul, which means our intelligence and our emotions, are not really aligned. But peacefully open for me. Kol doidi doifik. Peacefully open for me. Achoisi, the inherent love of a sibling's love. Rayasi, a friendship you give a friend. You know, friendship is not about taking, it's about giving. Give life, give parnasa, give livelihood. Fuse body and soul together. Bread and water, that's life. That refers to Torah learning. And now we're coming to Yoinasi. So this is a very powerful level of love. It's called histaklus, gazing. As a yoina dove, a dove has is monogamous, often has only one mate throughout its lifetime. And this is a love, a metaphor of love that's beyond the order of creation, of God filling the world as he does fill the world through our Torah study that we bring the soul that fills the body, the soul of the world, God that fills the world, and that soulfulness of God that fills the world is through us, our Torah study, as we're doing now. Then we come to the Yona, the dove, which is two beloveds who gaze at each other in their eyes, is a powerful pleasure. The general idea of this gazing, deep gazing, is the deepest and most powerful that's possible by a person. It's very easy to say, I love you. To say I don't mean the meaning behind the words now. It's easy to say, I love you. Saying in the depth that it shows. It's easy to give a handshake in friendship. It's easy to even hug a person. But who are you going to look in the eyes and gaze in the eyes in a very deep manner? First of all, it's a little difficult. It kind of has to be reciprocal. Yeah. If that person's looking away, then it's very hard. It's very hard. That person's looking directly at you and gazing. So in a sense, it takes two to gaze, right? And you're not doing that with a person you don't know well. You're only doing it with someone who you have, very deep, profound relationship. I mistakenly put it on, and it was on the right side from what you did yesterday, and I didn't press the left side, so all came gushing out on the wrong side. So now it's on the right, on the left, to get something over there to cover that whole thing, the whole piece. Yeah. No, it's not from now. From many times. So, yeah, that's a very deep connection. You can do this with your physical eye, or the Alter Rebbe says, or this deep gaze. Gaze can be in the mind's eye. It doesn't have to be just in the physical eye, right? As you can bring someone, and you can ponder somebody, and in your mind's eye, gaze upon upon them. This is the idea of Yenasi, of a dove. That's a very deep connection. Did you ever like take a person and just ponder them in your mind? Think about them? That's what we're talking about. That's the metaphor, right? That's the metaphor that we're speaking about over here. What does that mean? Because we're talking about a divine love over here. It means the capability of um, to gaze upon the glory of the King of God. When you come to gaze upon, then God gazes upon you. Because as we said, it's a two-way, right? Gazing is, when you gaze upon a person from the backside, what happens? They usually will turn around. So gazing is a very deep connection. This is a um, a very deep pleasure. Hmm. Just read a story from, this idea of gazing is a what's the word? I think I don't think it's something that we have such a connection to in the analog. Maybe we've in our love to our loved one, we've gazed in their eyes and they gaze in our eyes, and it's a sense of very deep connection, of course. Kind of makes you vulnerable, right? Hmm. Give me a second. Baruch atah Adonai, Elam Shach Baruch. So,
Amen.
so I don't know what this means, to be quite frank, to gaze upon the glory of the King of God. I know what to gaze to, into the eyes of my wife. And how often does that happen even? Right? Uh, a say I love you or a kiss or something like that is much more common than this because this is a very deep, deep connection and a deep pleasure. So I'm just thinking of a couple of incidences that maybe bring out this idea. And I don't know what it means in the glory of God. You know, it's deeper than the first level of the sibling love, which means the natural love that we have for God, that in nature we could see that nature is a reflection of the divine will, which, that's something I get. But this, what is it that you are that you're gazing? In other words, gazing is like you're so deeply connected to it. It's not just an awareness of, that everything's a reflection of the divine will. You're deeply, I guess it's like a deep, profound meditation that you bring to mind of something about your connection to God. So the Rebbe, um, when he used to have Yechidus, private audience, used to be 3 times a week, Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. And he could finish 2 o'clock in the morning, or he could finish at 5 o'clock in the morning. So there were always two yeshiva students that would wait, so they would walk their Rebbe home. Because everybody had left, secretaries even left, they went home, right? The Rebbe was left, and for all those came for private audience with the Rebbe. Actually, I don't know if the secretaries left, but in any case, um, so actually someone who lives here in Montreal, a friend of mine, older Chassid, he was one of the two students. And the Rebbe said, the only way is if you sit and learn the whole time. Don't waste time. The Rebbe got on his coat and went out and went into the zal, into the base medrash, into the learning hall, study hall. And the two boys, they see the Rebbe, so they get up right away. The Rebbe's gazing at a third yeshiva student who wasn't the most, as he said, like wasn't the smartest, most brilliant kind of student, but he gave it all. He was sitting and learning with such intensity, he didn't notice that the Rebbe walked into the room. And you know what the Rebbe was doing? Gazing at him. The Rebbe was having such pleasure that here's a yeshiva student that is so engaged in their learning of Torah, doesn't even recognize that he's there. Most people, you walk into the room, hello, hi, you want the attention, at least to be recognized. At least to be recognized, right? At least to be recognized by those that know you, right? Well, the Rebbe had such pleasure that he was totally not recognized. Not that he was forgotten, obviously not. If that student were aware, what happened, he'd feel terrible. The Rebbe walked in the room and I didn't stand for him. I was sitting, learning, and didn't pay the proper respect, like mortified. For the Rebbe, complete pleasure. the greatest pleasure. What a delight to see. Often there are times that the Rebbe would say that I had you in mind. It was a famous story with the coach. It was someone who didn't look like a Chabad Chassid. He was actually a high school coach, and at one point he was even a part of the coaching of the Harlem Globetrotters. What was his name? I forgot his name. I remember him. Whoa, he was. And some guys, he was coming to some seminary at night or going, I think going on home at night from after being by Farbrengen the Rebbe. And we take the subway. And some young punks started up with him. And somehow he managed to get away. And following day when he came back to 770 in the morning, right? And as the Rebbe walked in, he says, I really had to have you in mind yesterday. The fact that the Rebbe said preempting him. Well, the Rebbe didn't say what, but obviously we understood of the trouble that he went in and had. So this idea of bringing someone to mind and gazing upon them, whether it's in the mind's eye or physical eye in the first story, that's something I I get on some level. I'm not certain, and I guess what it means is that if you've studied, excuse me, I'm okay. Don't worry, folks. Thank you all for the blessings I've gotten over the last week. My cold is gone, but for some reason, wants to hold on a bit to a little hype. So, if you contemplate something very deeply about the divine in your mind's eye, so much so that it gives you pleasure. That's what we're talking about. That's a very deep. The metaphor is, of course, looking into the eyes of your beloved very deeply, and it takes both ways, right? And so here, when we do that, then God reciprocates from above to below, beyond the order of creation. This is an act that's beyond the order of creation. This is not normal. Learning Torah and bringing God into this world, this is above and beyond. This is, right. In 1946, 40, and 47, I think it was 1946, something called The Great Escape. The Great Escape of Chassidim out of Russia. This is after the war. Communist Russia. Chabad Chassidim are Russian descent, but now is the opportunity to get out of Russia because so many Polish citizens went into Russia during the war and saved their lives, right? Saved their lives. 3 million Polish Jews were, of the 6 million, were killed, right? Were anyway, murdered. So many Polish Jews and non-Polish Jews, right, just to save their lives, went into Russia. And so there was an amnesty after the war that they could leave Russia and allowed to go back to Poland. But the Chabad Chassidim, they're not Polish, they're Russian. So they made a lot of fake identity cards and passports and so on. Hundreds and hundreds were able to leave. And there was one particular train that was taking hundreds of them. And it was and the Russian, um, the Russian police, and they knew things were up. They knew that there were, people taking advantage, as they should, of the situation, um, to leave. So they were very much ready and on guard for this. So as the previous Rebbe in New York, who wasn't so well himself, um, he was praying one day, and and it wasn't the regular prayers. It was not the right time, but he was saying Az Yashir. Az Yashir is the song that the Jewish people sang when the sea split and they were saved from the Egyptians. And he was saying it, repeat it, and like in a very deep trance. And they found out afterwards that that was the exact time that they were crossing the border. And he was in a deep trance, saying the prayer of Az Yashir, of the song of by the splitting of the sea that we say every day. Anyway, just kind of some examples for me of what it means, a deep gaze into the divine. All right, folks, tomorrow we're going to learn the fourth level of love. Um, and we'll continue. See you soon. Today's very long Chumash. I'm going to try to get here as quickly as possible, but whatever, to learn today's Chumash. The